Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another monologue this morning. And I want to talk about farming today because farming's been in the news. And, well, I don't know whether farming is still in the news because there's a petition happening at the moment. A lot of people have sort of taken their attention elsewhere. And I think there was some explosions at airports, which was taking people's attention off something that is, of course, very important, what's happening to the farmers. But anyway, a lot of people go, oh, yeah, okay, farming, that's a bit boring, isn't it? Yeah. It's only because, we don't really need to know about where our food comes from because the supermarkets will always provide something and I can always go to a fast food outlet. Well, if the farmers aren't actually making any food, if they've been costed out of the process, then they won't be able to supply those. Oh, well, don't worry. People like Bill Gates will be able to give you some lovely worms to chew on, which is always good for a little munch. Anyway, somebody sent me this article and I wanted to talk about that. This is from the nexusnewsfeed.com web page, and here is a lovely looking tractor doing a bit of spraying by the looks of things. And it says here, farming robot kills 200,000 weeds per hour with lasers. Lasers. The agricultural world is witnessing a remarkable transformation driven by the groundbreaking technology. Among the most fascinating innovations is a farm robot equipped with lasers that can destroy hundreds of thousands of weeds in mere hours. This high-tech solution is not just a marvel of engineering, but a timely response to persistent challenges in farming, from labour shortages to environmental impact of chemical herbicides. So, yes, you could say, what a wonderful thing. Let me just show you. So this is, somebody actually doing it by hand, getting out there, getting their hands dirty, although they've got, it looks like inverted marigolds there. And we've got here an article, The Rise of Farming Robots in the Face of Persistent Agricultural Challenges. Technology has emerged, as it always has, as a transformative force, with farming robots leading the way. But is that the way we really want to go with farming? Have a look at this. This is I found this quite interesting and somewhat scary. I'll put this on. And there you can see the weeds are being attacked. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? Bit by bit, the weeds are being hacked off. And then I want to show you this one. Robot kills weed with laser. Just have a look at this. I think this is silent. But you can see, look, it's selecting the weeds in the ground. Now, my question here is, what is that doing to the ground, for one thing? What's it doing to the mycorrhizal and the whole layer of bits and pieces in the ground? What is that doing, one wonders? Is that killing off all the goodness, all the nature's own stuff in the ground? Well, I've got a feeling it is. I've got a feeling that isn't particularly good. And I tell you why. Because a lot of farmers in America and in England, the smaller scale farmers, are beginning to realise that actually weeds are not nasty things to have in your crops, but actually they are there. They're your friends. You put in what you might call weeds, sort of meadow grasses and various things like that. They are actually your friends to the crops because they put in and keep in the natural goodness. They feed that mycorrhizal, whatever it's called. I'm not very good on these technical terms, so don't pull me up on that. But that sort of spider's web of goodness, the underground fungi, which is there in the soil. It's keeping the soil alive and it's regenerating the soil. Seems to me that if you only have the single crop, again, more monoculture, and you're getting rid of the weeds, okay, you're not using chemicals now to kill those weeds, herbicides, and I wonder if you'll still be using the sprays. It didn't say anything about not using the sprays to kill the insects, but you're also going to be killing insects and these might be beneficial insects to your crop. So you're going to get more monoculture in bigger swathes of land. Technology, to me, has came to a point where it was useful for farmers, and then started to become rather monstrous and taking over. Now, you might say, well, Richard, you're not qualified to talk about farming. You're not a farmer. You don't have any land yet. You're still looking. Why haven't you got your own bit of land? Why aren't you on there doing it? And you're quite right. I may not actually be in that position because I'm looking for something very specific. If I could wave a magic wand, I would be wanting about 100 acres, and I would have grass-fed land with different types of crops on there, but also I would have dairy. I have a dairy herd and a beef herd. I'm sure you've heard of those sort of things. Anyway, so I've been reading. This is a fantastic book to read if you want to get back into stuff. Now, in the 1950s, Frank Newman Turner started to realize that the modern technology way of farming, actually with chemicals and things, was not very good for the ground. And he realized that the soil was dying. And if the soil dies, that sort of 6 to 8, 9 inches of soil, which is so precious, if that goes, you're relying on artificials, which is what these robot stuff will be continually relying on, artificial, which does not give you the same nutrients that you get if you do it properly and you follow nature. And so in 1957, he published this book, and it's a fantastic book of showing how farmers, even today, can save huge amounts of money, get rid of the plough. You only need the disc harrow, and you don't need artificials whatsoever. You're using nature to produce food, and it is bountiful. It is bountiful. Somebody else who, in more modern times, has been talking about similar things is Gabe Brown, and he talks about the regenerative agriculture and how he is managing. And he does amazing things without using the plough and without using artificials and not using robotics. Another person who is really good at this is Joel Salatin. And he's written a number of books, and you'll see YouTube videos on him. You Can Farm is just one of many books. Fantastic introduction to how you can get going and get your farm going. These are, to me, absolutely inspirational, because farming used to be a way of life. It used to be, people used to be involved in the process of growing food. There was intention, there was consciousness in that. It wasn't just put onto a mechanical process that you are devolved from, and so you end up with something which is pretty nutrient-free, vitamin deficient, but grown fast and in vast quantities. That's, I mean, it is Frankenstein foods at the end of the day, even if they can zap the weeds. I think that is a monstrous idea, to get rid of the weeds, because the weeds are doing all that photosynthesis, and they're bringing in the nitrogen that you need into the soil. They're keeping the soil aerated. They're keeping the soil crumbly and in a good position. And if you know how to work with the weeds and the insects and things, and the pollinators, you're actually being of benefit. These monstrous large farms, industrialization is not good. Now, here's an interesting book for those people who like old-fashioned things. This is the Ferguson tractor story, and this talks about old Harry Ferguson and his incredible tractors. And there's just some marvellous pictures there of the old way of farming. And the Fergie sort of came around in the late 40s, I think. Look at those lovely pictures. Aren't they delightful? And to me, this sums up the point where farming got to its best position. It was still... People were still on the land, people were still farming, and they had a technology that would aid them. I mean, the amazing Fergie can do all sorts of different things, combining all the different things. But you still had small farms. You still might have wanted to continue to use horses for those areas where tractors would just impact the ground. But also, you could fix the Fergie in a field with just a small number of tools. Anyone could do it. You didn't need to have a huge contract. You didn't need a lot of money. You still had small farms with hedgerows. Hedgerows so important. So important for a farm because it's putting in wildlife that will eat off, particularly things like birds and different types of insects, will eat off the annoying insects that are damaging the crop, because those predators will come because they'll see where the aphids and things like that, which are on your crop, they'll go, yeah, we could eat those. And so they'll live in the hedgerows. But not only that, the hedgerows have got roots. They're sucking up the water so that you're keeping the ground from flooding. These big, massive fields will flood or will be very difficult to drain in droughts. Another thing about the no dig and getting rid of the plough is that if you don't plough up the soil, there is in the ground a natural body of water. And our chap Frank down here, Newman Turner, if I can grab his book again, he realised, of course, that actually you don't need to worry about watering it. Even in a drought, the plants will be watered. You don't have to have these great big bowers coming on with these big arms spraying all day long trying to get water in there. And of course, the bigger field, you've got all that runoff and all these things, and then there's all of the various chemicals. To me, the 1950s was the time when farming was at its zenith, if you like. The farms were around the towns and villages. You were getting local food, organically produced, nice and good, seasonal, so it was fresh. It didn't travel very far, and people could eat healthily. Thereafter, we start to see the beginning of the end of farming from being a natural, organic, healthy occupation for people to becoming highly industrialized, meaning bigger, more expansive, more expensive, bigger farms. And then you start getting these management contracts coming in, people who've never actually put their hands into the ground at all because everything's done by technology. And we've led ourselves down this path of thinking that food production can be just one big industrial unit. And yes, of course it can be. But do we really want it that? I would argue, and you can disagree with me, of course, that I don't think we do, because I think that what you put into your body is so important, that it is healthy, that it is organic, because where does the food and you stop? We are one and the same. And it is ridiculous to think that you can put in something that is pretty much now industrially made, artificial, has no, I'm trying to think of the right word, no sort of spirit to it, no essence to it, and is not so beneficial. And let's face it, here we are in the 21st century, supposed to be at the top of our game, and how many people are we seeing are ill and are overweight and depressed and poor and miserable as sin? I mean, if this is the top of our game, then we've stepped over something, a line somewhere that has not been beneficial for people. And I think that we made a mistake in the 50s, allowing the big corporations, the big agricultural companies, the big farming equipment companies to sell our farmers ever more equipment, getting them into big contracts where they've destroyed the countryside, they've destroyed the soil. Not intentionally, the farmers have been trying to sort of keep up with what they ought to be doing, and they've been missold a future that has blighted all of us. And we are now seeing the results of that. And of course, the farmers are under the thumb from the supermarkets, which is another reason to not go and buy from the supermarkets, that we should be supporting the farm shops and the smaller farms and those people who are growing in their back gardens, or they're growing in allotments, or they're growing in small plots of land. This is what we need to do to grab back our land before the big people like BlackRock come in, swoop down, and with that land grab and take it all away from us and push us away from the land and into 15-minute cities. And I can't think of anybody who wants to live like that. But maybe you do. Maybe you see it differently. Be interested in your comments. Thank you so much for watching.